Musk has offered Twitter $41 billion in cash to take the company private. Twitter's board is meeting at 1 p.m. Eastern today to carefully review Musk's latest takeover bid. Twitter is one of the largest social media platforms, claiming 330 million monthly active users around the world. And Musk has criticized the company for not living up to free speech principles and says it needs to be transformed. And if Elon Musk acquires it, we may just see him do that. Okay, so do you think he's serious, Pete?
I do. First of all, can I say how great it is to be back on the couch?
Yes, you can.
I just want to say that. I love the show.
Did you give it an amen?
Oh, well, I think
I thought I heard an amen.
Amen coming down.
Yes.
I'll second that. Hallelujah.
So it's great to see you. I will say, I'll give it an amen as well to Elon Musk. I think he is serious. I think this is a guy who's made a lot of money. He's been very successful. Loves this country and the freedoms it affords. Looks at a space like Twitter and says, it used to be a public forum, now it's not. The business model also fundamentally broken. So I'm going to buy in to create leverage. Now that I see it from the inside a little bit more, I realize how broken it is. I want it all, and I take it private in the process. And if they walk away from the deal, which they might, and he decides to get rid of his shares, that puts them in a really precarious situation as well as far as shareholders and stock price. So I did not have on my bingo card 1 week ago, Elon Musk, tries to save free speech in America. But he's a free thinker and a bold guy. And I hope he stares this down. And I thought we were stuck to alternate ecosystems as conservatives or free thinkers, create your own. It would be amazing if you could take a brand and revitalize it and make it a true town square.
Wow. That is so precise what you just said. Not stuck. He gives that option that is already established, which has been part of the challenge for other platforms coming from the ground up. Right? He starts with 330 million followers. I
mean, it's like if CNN could ever figure it out. Right? They've got a brand.
Well, they spent the money, baby.
They did.
Yeah, they got 10,000 viewers for that money. Shannon, I saw you over there just nodding in an agreement. What do you see about this?
Well, here's my thing: is anytime like the establishment gets freaked out, or like Silicon Valley and the elites are like, no, Elon Musk can't touch Twitter. Like then I start saying, well, why? That's a little, bit of a contrarian in me that they're so freaked out about it. But remember, he calls himself a free speech absolutist. Remember, he put the Starlink satellites up and trying to help communications stay going in Ukraine. And people said, while you're at it, you need to block all the Russian news and Russian media propaganda. And he's like, nope, I will not do that short of a gun being pointed to my head. I am absolutely about free speech, unfiltered in its purest form. And I think that scares Twitter.
Wow. Okay, I want to get to this because there's another big voice in the business world. Mark Cuban tweeted today, every major tech company, Google, Facebook, et al., is on the phone with their antitrust lawyers asking if they can buy Twitter and get it approved. And Twitter is on the phone with their lawyers asking which can be their white knight. Going to be interesting. Emily.
Right. Well, contrast that with Elon Musk's tweet before we'll pop up, where he said next board meeting is going to be lit to talk about bingo. He's the only one apparently that saw the writing on the wall. Look, I thought what was really interesting about this is the language he used in his letter to the board, where he said Twitter has the potential to serve truly as the free speech marketplace in global democracy. And he said, but as of now, the way it is, since becoming an investor, I have realized it will never serve in that capacity in the way it's being run right now. It will not serve both as a free speech portal and also as this really fundamental aspect of a democracy. That is why I am coming in as the white knight, so that I can save it. And I think what's really interesting, too, to your point, Hegseth, is remember that he grew up in South Africa, and the Republic of South Africa based their constitution on ours. So here is someone that did not grow up here under our particular constitution, but values and appreciates what free speech means, what capitalism means, right? What anti-regulation means. All of that. So I think if anyone can save it, he can. But to Mark Cuban's point, if there are other big tech lollipop heads coming in here trying to stamp it down, well, I know who I'm rooting for, and it's not them.
Wow, I'd never had that usage of lollipop head.
It popped in my head. It made sense in my head.
Yeah, look, my take is this. Brian Stelter of CNN, he said there's a lot of fear about Elon Musk taking over. Fear. I'm sure Brian Stelter lies awake at night thinking about this, because guess what it means? If conservatives are given a free public square, where they can say their opinion unbridled, unshadowed, uncensored. If they are given a place where the media is no longer leaning left, where social media can't censor Hunter Biden, here's what happens. Conservatives win nearly every time. When you look at the Hunter Biden story, for example, Media Research Center did a poll. They said 36% of Biden voters did not know about the scandal. 13% said it would have changed their vote, meaning that President Trump would have gotten 289 electoral votes. That is what happens when you censor an entire story to protect a candidate. And that is exactly what is happening, Harris. But Elon Musk, we'll see what he does. I'm really excited because Elon Musk made the key point. You hit on it, Pete Hegseth. Because Twitter was a public square, social media was a public square, they were given Section 230 protection, meaning they're virtually immune from lawsuits. Former president can't take them on. You just can't sue them. They're no longer the public square when you're censoring half the country. So we need to roll back that Section 230 protection. That was the biggest regret for me with the Trump administration, is that that was not done.
So it's interesting because at first Elon Musk was asked about him. People wondered if he was really serious when he didn't take that seat on the board. But why would you? I mean, they've invited you to sit at a party where they're probably not going to listen to you, even though you own 9.2% of the shares, because you made a big buy already.
Well, he invited himself to the party. and they
to the overall party,
and they did not want him at that party. And then if he took the seat at the board, then he'd be limited in what he could buy and what he could do. Clearly, he had grander plans from the beginning. But Shannon, to your point, I love what the fact that heads are exploding inside Twitter headquarters of these blue check marks who they've grown up in a cocoon where speech is violence. Speech absolutists are dangerous. And that's where the clash is. We have a lot of young people who believe in this idea that disinformation is dangerous, that you can't tweet out the wrong gender pronoun from someone. That needs to be shut down. This is a total clash of worldviews of whether or not we should have absolute free speech. That's why, Elon Musk has left a legacy on this country, whether it's Tesla or SpaceX. This would be an even bigger one.
So that's really interesting what you just said, that word disinformation, right? Because they got to decide what was disinformation. And it wasn't an algorithm. We know that it's human beings at Twitter, because when that racial epithet was trending against Senator Tim Scott, remember what they called him? They let that hashtag trend. They actually made it flow to the top. They manipulated it. It wasn't an algorithm that wasn't a human base there. They did that. So they want to control the disinformation, whatever it is. It's either something that they determine not to be true or something that they wish was not true. Emily?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And keep in mind, we're going to get to this conversation later. But for example, the lunatic, the maniac that shot people in the New York subway, well, he was allowed, his racist rants were allowed to thrive there on Twitter and other platforms. And to your point, other gender pronoun misthings, those are what gets you canceled, right? Daring to question the CDC, daring to question authority in certain capacities.
Suspended sticker. I wear it like a badge.
The Babylon Bee.
There you go.
Babylon Bee.
Because it was humans ascertaining what constitutes violence, what constitutes free speech or not, and they were absolutely condemning and censoring those whose voices needed to be heard.
All right.